Hello and welcome to Tech24. I'm Anelise Borges. Coming up, web activism, digital campaigning, online advocacy. The web is changing the world. Today, we meet up with Change.org's Paul Hilder, who explains how all of us can be part of the process. And in Test 24, we'll play tech music with a Dualo Do Touch. The internet is helping to change the world through websites like Change.org, a free petition tool for 50 million users in 196 countries. From a campaign against rising banking fees to an appeal for the U.S. judiciary to condemn Trayvon Martin's shooter. Change.org hosts up to 25,000 new petitions every month, covering the length and breadth of the world's causes. We met up with the Vice President of Global Campaigns at Change.org, Paul Hilder, who gave us his take on the web activism giant. Change.org is the world's leading platform for online petitioning and one of the most successful social businesses globally. To what do you attribute its significance?
Well, Change is really the YouTube of social change. That's how we think about it. The way it works is that it empowers people everywhere to create the change that they want to see, rather than defining an agenda top down. It's about what you want to do. And the power of the tools which have been built in Silicon Valley, and also I think the extent to which we focus on serving our users has helped it grow very rapidly to over 50 million people all around the world. We're now in 18 countries with offices as well.
And how exactly does the platform work? Who can launch petitions, for example?
Literally anyone. So we see organizations and associations and sometimes even politicians starting petitions, but for the most part it's just any individual who has an issue in their life, in their community, in their workplace, or in their consumption. You know, we had IKEA respond to a petition very recently on the site, which was fantastic to see. The wonderful thing about Change.org is it really levels the playing field between people and power.
An American soldier desperately trying to rescue an Afghan translator.
He'll die, no question about it. They'll torture him in front of his family. I can breathe a sigh of relief. I got my buddy home.
I had a brother here to fight for me.
Some have criticized the monetization of the website. Wired magazine called you the Google of modern politics because of your business model. Is Change.org the for-profit business for non-profits?
We are quite flattered by the comparison with Google in one sense, and you know, we are indeed an open platform which appeals to anyone, and we have aspirations to be ubiquitous and to empower people everywhere. The difference between us and Google or Facebook or Twitter is that we're a social enterprise. We focus first and foremost on our mission of empowerment and not on revenue or profit. In fact, we don't talk about profit at all. So yeah, we don't describe ourselves as for-profit. We focus on growing very rapidly and investing all of the revenue that we can generate into helping to serve our users.
In 2008, Change.org partnered with MySpace to create an index of crowdsourced ideas for the US government to review and action. And President Barack Obama has signed at least one of the petitions on the website. Do you think the future of democracy is online?
I think that the future of democracy is networked and open. I think that increasingly people are living their lives online as well as offline, and the two connect to each other very seamlessly. And so, yes, I think that online and networks are going to be a central part of how we do democracy in the future, but face-to-face interaction is also going to be critically important.
The motto of the platform is "What will you change?" and some very interesting petitions have been posted on the website. What are some of your favorites?
Well, one of my favorites here in France is the petition started by Adrien Sargent, who launched Les Poussins, a movement for auto-entrepreneurs, for self-employed entrepreneurs, really pushing back against some new regulations the government was seeking to introduce around taxation. And Adrien started that campaign just as one individual. It grew very, very fast. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people signed on. I'll give you one more in Brazil, which was earlier last year, actually. There was a big initiative that the Congress was trying to exempt themselves as political representatives from investigation for political corruption. So the extraordinary, and so the public prosecutors actually launched a campaign themselves on the platform against this, and then that spread like wildfire across the country. There were hundreds of thousands of petitions, targeting individual Congress people, and in the end the law was not passed, and it all converged with street protests and very interesting times.
Paul Hilder, thank you so much for receiving us today here.
It's a pleasure.
Paul Hilder talking to us there from change.org. We're going to move on now, because up next is Test 24. The Dualo DoTouch is a new musical instrument that promises to help us better understand music. We brought in a music specialist to test it for us, Marc Thompson. Marc, the Dualo is aimed at professionals and beginners alike, and you can use it for composing as well as performances, right?
Yes, you can. I mean, this instrument here, it actually looks like a set of speakers, and you hold it like an accordion, but it's got more in common with a synth, really. The amount of it's got 100 different instruments you can play, and if you just tap on these buttons here like this. And if you do that, but obviously in terms of professional musicians, the tone that's coming out of there is not exactly production worthy. It's not something you'd want to put on an album. But for songwriting purposes, definitely. It's something you can layer up your drum track, your bass track, your guitar track, pianos, orchestration, brilliant. You can spend hours using it. So I can see professionals using it for that rather than live performances. Whereas for beginners, music theory is a great idea for music theory, because the way that the chords are set out, the way the notes are set out, you really learn the minors, the majors, and the chord progression. So it makes perfect sense.
Let us hear some more. I've heard a little bit, but not enough.
So, for example, this is just the accordion mode. If you want to move it on to, say, a drum, you can do. This is the hip-hop drum, so. And then what's really clever with this is this button here, which is the loop button. Now what you can do is, say I want to record a drum beat. So this is the drum beat. And then you press the button again, and theoretically it should come out. It hasn't this time for some reason, but that's the way it works. And this is just a prototype. So when it actually does come out in April, in just a couple of months' time, hopefully all these little quirks should be worked out.
Would you buy one?
I mean, it's 990 euros, so I mean, it's top end, almost 1,000 euros there. I think as this is a first gen model, there are improvements to be made, and I might sit back and wait for other people to sample around with this and work out how it can be improved, how it can be made better for a second generation.
And the Dualo DoTouch is coming out in May. We're going to keep an eye on that. Thank you very much, Marc. And that's all we have time for. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Tech 24. You can get in touch with us on Facebook or on Twitter. Our hashtag is Tech24. And we leave you today with images of an American Hockey League referee wearing a GoPro on his helmet. The result is pretty awesome. A hockey game like we've never seen before. Thanks for watching, and stay with us here on France 24.